All right, I think I am live here. Let's give everyone a couple minutes to come on. In the meantime, I'm going to also try to go live on Instagram, which has to be done separately. So give me 1 second here. Let me just set that up. Back to school. And title. Did that work? No. Doesn't seem like it's working. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry, I'm technologically challenged. Investment banking. This is how you know you're a boomer. So when you struggle with the social media apps. Q&A. Back to school. Checking connection. Okay, seems like it's working maybe. All right, now we're live. Okay, so we're on Instagram, which is great. Let me set that to the side. Let me just see.
Hey guys, welcome to the Wall Street Mastermind.
Let me just see if I am actually on the YouTube channel. Hopefully we are. Yes, we are. And then we're also on LinkedIn as well, and on Facebook. Okay, cool. So I think we are live everywhere pretty much. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If you guys have questions, so what we're doing is a Ask Me Anything. We do these about, or I do these about once a month. And we are basically answering all of your questions related to investment banking, recruiting, whatever you want to know. And this is the back to school edition, which means, um, right now is really like a critical time for investment banking recruiting for a lot of you, depending on what year you're in. But like, if you're a senior, obviously you just finished your junior summer internship. A lot of you have probably accepted your offers to return, in which case, congratulations, it's huge, right? And now you can kind of relax for the rest of your senior year. But for those of you who decide to recruit again for full time, maybe to try to get a better offer from a better firm, you're probably going through that right now, right? So we can talk about that. For the juniors who are basically still recruiting for summer 2022 internships, that's obviously hugely important, right? If you haven't received an offer yet, then at this point in the process, we're probably looking at some of the middle market banks, because a lot of the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks are pretty much done. But that's okay. There's still a lot of really, really good middle market banks that are out there. And you should try to get the best one possible, right? And even if your goal is to eventually work for a bulge bracket or elite boutique bank, the better the bank you're able to work at for your summer internship, the easier full-time recruiting is going to be for you. Okay. um, and I say this because like we've seen a lot of our own students go through this. We actually, one of our clients, I won't name him, but he just had like an internship at one of the top elite boutiques out there, right? And I won't say which firm just to protect his privacy, but it's like, think like this is a top 5 bank, okay? And something happened that was very unfortunate where he ended up not getting the return offer, and he's pretty devastated, obviously. But we quickly got to work helping him with full time recruiting, and then basically within 1 week, he had 3 offers lined up from two other elite boutiques, including one of the top ones, as well as a third bank that's, I would say maybe like a top 30 bank. They're like not quite an elite boutique yet, but still quite good. And part of the reason why he was able to get so many interviews and so many offers and bounce back right away was because his junior summer internship was at such a good bank, right? And so the point being, like, if you're a junior and you're still recruiting right now, like a lot of people say, oh, well, is it too late? No, it's not time to give up yet. Like, you want to still try to like give it your best shot and just land the best bank you can possibly get, and you'll be fine, right? Like I had a different client that just finished his junior summer internship. He actually did his junior summer internship at like a regional boutique, right? And it's like a small bank that most people probably have never heard of before. But he just went through the full time recruiting process uh, basically over the last couple of weeks or so, and he got multiple interviews with both back and elite boutique banks, and he'll be going to elite boutique for full time. So it can absolutely be done for full time as long as you have a highly relevant internship for your junior summer. Okay, so those are the upperclassmen, and obviously, if you're a sophomore or freshman, like sophomores, like you still have the entire recruiting process ahead of you. Now is the best time to really buckle down and make sure that you're doing what you need to do because um, I expect summer 2023 internship recruiting to probably start by the end of this year. So it's September 7th now, right? We just finish Labor Day, this is when things are going to start kicking into high gear soon. And you want to make sure that your interview prep is done. You want to make sure that you start networking as soon as possible. And so we can talk about how to do that. And then last but not least, obviously, you're a freshman, then you have the most time. But like with how accelerated the recruiting timeline is nowadays, it's never too early to start. As a freshman, what you're probably worried about now that school has just started is like what should you be getting involved with on campus? Like what kind of extracurricular activities should you be getting participating in? What kind of internships should you be trying to get? What kind of classes should you be taking to make sure that you are having as much success as possible in college, right? So we can talk about all of these things, and if you guys have a specific question about any of these things that we just talked about, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and then we'll try to go through all of them. Okay, so I'm going to start with a question here on Instagram. Okay, so Cameron KP asks, in terms of the timeline, what should a freshman new to college be doing to help set up internships? Yeah, so great question, Cameron. So I think that if you're a freshman and just started on campus, one of the best things you can do actually is figure out kind of like the lay of the land on campus. Okay, so like what are the most relevant clubs on campus for students who want to get into investment banking? A lot of schools have these nowadays. I mean, I don't know what school you go to, but if you go to a target school, they will definitely have a bunch of clubs that are relevant to banking. But even if you go to a non-target school, like a lot of times the non-target schools will have clubs like this too. I call them feeder clubs because at a lot of these schools, basically what's happening is you'll find that most of the alumni who actually work in investment banking all used to be in like the same handful of clubs on campus, right? So these could be like, student-run investment funds. These could be like business fraternities. These could be just like some sort of finance club or iBanking club or PE club. So you want to figure out who those organizations are so that you can basically apply and try to get into these clubs because most of these clubs are like pretty selective, right? And so it's not like you can just get in if you want to. Everybody is trying to get into the same club, so you have to be very, very competitive. Okay, so that's probably like the most important thing you can do during your first year, or sorry, during your first semester. And then like your question in terms of like being set up for internships and stuff like that. Um, I think getting into those clubs will help because a lot of times, like they know about a lot of internship opportunities, or their alumni have interned in certain places before, and then so they can kind of point you in the right direction. But the other thing you should be thinking about doing is like most freshmen that I see, and not even just freshmen, but like underclassmen in general, they struggle with like getting their very first internship experience, right? And the reason why they struggle with that is because most people what they do is they just go on the major job sites like LinkedIn or Glassdoor or uh, Indeed or even Google Jobs, and then they just see like, okay, what finance internships can I find, and then they just submit as many applications as possible, right, and drop their resumes everywhere. You can't do that, but typically what we find and what our students find is that with those major job sites, um, first of all, they get a ton of applications. Most of the jobs on there, especially the good ones, get hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants, right? And so if you're just starting out, you're just a freshman in college, you most likely don't have a whole lot of experience, right, on your resume. So, like when they're looking at hundreds of resumes or thousands of resumes, the chances of you being the most competitive resume in the entire resume stack is pretty low, right? Like pretty slim to none. The other thing is like also a lot of these jobs that are posted on those major job sites, they're typically looking for upperclassmen, right? Because to post a job on those job sites, like you have to typically pay. Like if you want to post a job on LinkedIn, you have to pay LinkedIn for that job posting, and so most companies are not doing that just for like some inexperienced free intern, which most underclassmen would be, right? Most of them are posting it for like the more serious internships for people that are about to graduate, and then like if they do a good job during that internship, they can then receive a full time offer to work there. That's like a better investment for the firm, right? So it's just like there's a mismatch in terms of the type of candidates that they're looking for and the type of candidate that you are, right? So as a freshman, I would say like one of the most important skills that you're gonna have to learn is, I mean, first of all, obviously like you need to make your resume fully polished and look as good as possible, but like you you need to learn how to network, right? Like usually like your first job is going to be one that you network your way into, right? It's probably going to be at a smaller firm. They're not posting their jobs on like these major job sites and things like that. And you're going to have to like reach out to them, do some cold outreach, and ask them if they'll take you on as an intern. And learning how to do that efficiently and effectively is going to go a long ways in like determining whether you get the job or not. Right. So that would be my advice for you, Cameron. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. I'm going to switch over here to LinkedIn next. And I see we have like multiple questions here in the queue. So on LinkedIn, Ariana, hopefully I'm not butchering your name. Ariana asks, which firms would you suggest applying to on an international student visa? Yeah, so Ariana, like, I'm sorry, that's my second kid. My newborn is crying in the background. If you guys can hear that, my house is crazy hectic right now because I'm about to move and we're packing and there's boxes everywhere, and I also have a newborn. So, but which firms would you which firms would you suggest applying to on an international student visa? So this list changes every year. So I don't know what year you are, but like I'll just so it's hard to give you like an exact list, right? For example, like JP Morgan, they used to sponsor visas like 2 years ago, but then like last year and this year they didn't, right? And so firms change their policies all the time. But I would just say, generally speaking, it's going to be the bigger firms that sponsor, right? So you're looking at the bulge bracket firms, the elite boutiques. They have more of the infrastructure from the human resources side to be able to do this type of thing. Some middle market firms will sponsor as well, especially like if you're talking about, kind of like the upper middle market, like the top 50 banks out there. I would say it consists of, top 20 is about bulge bracket and elite boutique banks. And then like the next 30 banks or so, I would say I consider them to be middle market banks, right? And so um, I would start with those top 50 firms. They're the most likely to sponsor. That doesn't mean that every single one of them will sponsor, but the only way to really find out if they are sponsoring or not is to network again with the firms that you're interested in applying to, right? Like you can reach out to the HR team at those firms and just ask them, like these are more logistical type questions, which if you ask a banker, they may or may not know, right? And so asking HR typically like that's their job to know this kind of stuff. And so they should be able to give you like a more definitive answer. Also keep in mind though, sometimes we've seen this where like two different students that we're working with will ask the same firm whether they sponsor or not, and then like they'll get different answers. So like one student will hear that they do sponsor, and the other person will hear that they don't. And so, the reason why that happens sometimes, I think, is like sponsoring is something that a lot of banks will do, but they'll only do it on a selective basis, right? Meaning you have to give them a really good reason to sponsor you. Like if they think that you are highly qualified and you're an exceptional candidate, then yeah, they'll go out of their way and they'll inconvenience themselves just to be able to hire you. But let's say like if you're not an exceptional candidate or in their eyes, then it's easier for them to just hire like a domestic student that they don't have to sponsor, right? And so a lot of it also comes down to like how good of a candidate you can turn yourself into, right? Like, can you like how good is your resume, right? How well have you networked? Like, all of those things matter um, when it comes to impressing these firms, right? So the last tip I'll give you too is like typically a lot of the firms that are like more internationally based will be more open to sponsoring. So like some of the European banks, if you're applying to them in the U.S. and some of the Asian banks too, if they like they all have like U.S. offices, right? Like in New York and some of the major financial centers. And so typically what we've seen is that those banks tend to sponsor more, probably because like they themselves have more international employees in the first place. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, Ariana. So coming back to Instagram here, Gabe Corey 123 asks cover letters for IB. I'm not really sure what that means. Gabe, you're gonna have to elaborate on what you're asking, like maybe in a full complete sentence, so I know what you're asking. Um, Cameron says thanks, I appreciate it. No problem, Cameron. Let me go to the next question here on YouTube. So Hidana, oh Hida Naruto GTA. Ah, it's a Naruto reference. Love Naruto. Used to watch it all the time when I was in high school and college. So let's see. So would it make sense to delay graduation for a shot at a summer internship? I graduate in summer 2024, but will be in business school starting September 2022. Currently taking non-business classes. I graduate in summer 2024. Will be in business school starting September 20. So I'm a little bit confused. Are you currently in college or are you currently uh are you currently in college or are you currently in business school? Because if you're graduating, if you're starting business school, it sounds like what you're saying is you're starting business school in September 2022 and it's a 2-year program and then you're going to graduate in 2024. So if that's the case and you go then for you would actually recruit for a summer associate position for summer 2023 because that's the summer before you graduate business school. If your goal is to recruit for a summer 2023 internship at the associate level, then I don't think that process has started yet, and so you actually still have time. Um, okay, you said you're currently in university but not in business school, doing a 4-year degree. Oh, got it. Okay, so this business school you're talking about is like a undergraduate business school at the undergrad level, not at like the grad school level. Is that right? So even then, so if that's the case, then to me that just sounds like you're graduating from undergrad in the class of 2024. In which case, same thing. The summer internship that's really important for you is the summer 2023 internship, and that means that you're currently, I think you just started your sophomore year, if I'm doing the math right, and so summer 2023 internship recruiting for you will likely, like I said at the beginning of this AMA, it'll likely happen at the probably close to like the end of this calendar year. Like my educated guess, and that's all it is. It's just like I'm estimating based on what's happened in recent years. Um, is that process will kick off probably in like the next 3-ish months or so, 3 to 4 months or so, right? So you still have plenty of time. You don't need to delay graduation just to recruit for a summer 2023 internship. I mean, I don't know. I will have to see your resume and see what's on it and get to know you a little bit better to see like, hey, what else you still need to do before now and then. But typically, like if it's 3 or 4 months and you prepare the right way, you should be able to get to where you need to be. And I'm talking like across the board in terms of your resume, your networking, your technical interview prep, and your behavioral interview prep. Like you need all of those things, right? So across the board. So hopefully that makes sense. But if you have other follow-up questions, feel free to just drop more comments in the down below. Okay. So coming back to Instagram for a sec. So the Brajesh asks, how would I be able to break into investment banking from a non-target school such as Penn State? Yeah. So Brajesh, plenty of people break into banking from non-target schools. Right. It's easier coming from a target school, but like don't believe everything you read online where people say, oh, you have to go to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or whatever if you want to have a shot at working on Wall Street. Like I would say probably about half of the students, we've worked with over 400 students, and about half of them have come from non-target schools. And so, like, the most important thing if you come from non-target school is you have to network. You're not going to have like as many alumni from your school on Wall Street, and so it's not just networking with the alumni from your school. You have to network with people outside of your alumni network, right? And also, typically, if you're at a non-target school, like the disadvantage is that there's not as many kids from your school who want to do investment banking, so you're not in like that type of environment where there's a lot of like-minded individuals and you guys can all kind of like help each other out and kind of like stay on top of things together and tell each other about opportunities and practice interviewing, and also like these banks aren't coming to your campus to proactively recruit you guys or host recruiting events and things like that. So bottom line is, um, they're not going to come to you. So you're going to have to be even more proactive and bring the fight to them, right? You have to put yourself on people's radar. You have to go out of your way to find ways to prepare for recruiting, and you have to learn how to get really, really good at networking, right? And maybe that's like just from talking to mentors you find on your own, or reading a bunch of stuff online, or like you can use something like Wall Street Mastermind, which like we help a ton of non-target school students, and they all end up being, well, not all, but the vast majority of them end up being very, very successful, right? Like we have over 90% success rate. So if you want, like happy to have you talk to someone who's been to the program first. Like, so this is a new thing that we're doing, by the way, guys. It's just like because a lot of people know that we have a program that helps people out, but they don't really know like what the program is like, or they don't know anyone else has gone through the program yet. And so we recently started doing this where before you even talk to our team, we'll let you talk to just like another student who has gone through the recruiting process already, has successfully received an offer with our help. So like they're an alumni of our program, and so we call these like virtual coffee chats. So it's not like a sales call. It's not like, it's like super chill and laid back, but like it's just like you networking with an upperclassman and talking to them about their recruiting experience, and they can give you some advice and whatnot, right? And so like if you guys want to talk to them, like you can just go on our website and book this call, or I think I have a link um, in the description of some of these live streams that are going on right now. But it's just wallstreetmastermind.com/apply, right? And you can book these virtual strategy sessions. They're completely free. Just another networking opportunity. And then like if you like what you hear and you want to talk to our team further, like then you're welcome to book another follow-up call with our team, but only if you want to, right? You don't have to. Hopefully that makes sense. And then I think, Brajesh, you had a follow up question. You said you're a senior in high school, graduating in May 2022, and you will have your AA in August of 2022. Should I go straight to college and apply for them, or take a year off? What would I do? Sorry, what does AA stand for? I think that might be like, I don't know if you're like in the UK or somewhere else. Like, AA is not a term that I'm familiar with, but I mean, if you're a high schooler, uh, the most common thing to do is just go straight to college. There's no reason to like take a year off unless you have like some really, really good reason to do that. But if you want to kind of clarify what that is, associate degree. Okay, you're gonna have your associate degree. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, yeah, if you graduate in 2022, I would just go straight to college. There's no need to skip a year, right? Why would you skip a year? I don't, unless you have a specific rationale, reason for why you're thinking about doing that, in which case you can let me know. Um, Let me come back to YouTube here. So, technically, I have one summer during business school before graduating, but if I delay graduation, I have two summer internships. Got it. So, this is kind of like a follow up to the previous question, I'm guessing, about whether you should delay graduation. Yeah, you can delay graduation if you want an extra summer to do internships, but again, depends on what's already on your resume. That may not be necessary, right? Um, it also depends on how you're planning on delaying your graduation. Like if you're delaying graduation by taking like a gap semester and you don't have to pay for that semester, then maybe that's not as bad. But sometimes people delay graduation by like picking up an additional major or additional academic requirements, and they're just staying in school longer. If you're staying in school longer, you're gonna have to pay more tuition, right? Which could get pretty expensive. So um, you can also like get internships during the school year. By the way, it doesn't have to be during the summer, right? So a lot of students that we work with, they're doing part-time internships during the semester while they're in school, and they're doing internships in the summer, right? So they can build up like 2 or 3 or even 4 relevant experiences on their resume before sophomore year is even over, and they don't have to go. They don't have to wait until sophomore summer or junior summer to get those experiences. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Um, so Brajesh has possibly the network and job experience. Yeah, but you can just do that while you're in school, Brajesh. Like you can network while you're in school. You can like I just said just now, you can get job experience while you're in school. Like those things should not like they do not need to be full time. Like it's not a full time job. They can be, but they don't need to be. You know, so it's also like if you just graduated high school and then you delay going to college, and all you have is a high school degree. I don't know what kind of jobs you're going to be able to get. Most of like the more legitimate internships, you're not going to be interested in hiring someone who only has a high school diploma. So it's easier to get those internships actually if you're in college already, right? So hopefully that makes sense. We go to the next question. This is on YouTube. Greg asks equity research slash macro research tips. Um, can you be more specific, Greg, about what you're asking? Like this is super vague. I'm not really sure like what you're looking for. Um, so if you want to clarify, I'm happy to try to answer this question. I mean, I'm not an equity research guy, but I know a little bit about it because there's some overlap with banking. But depends on what you want to know. Okay. Let me go to the next one. Bruce Hahn says, if I get a top capital market group team from a mid BB, should I just take it? Yeah, I mean, look, Bruce, that's a very personal decision, right? I think the first question I would ask is, what other options do you have at the moment, right? Because whether you should take an offer or not, that always needs to be weighed against what other opportunities you have in front of you. If you have no other offers at this moment and you get a capital markets offer from a mid-tier bulge bracket, um, I'm assuming you're a junior, right? So you're recruiting for someone in 2022 right now, but like at this point in the process, it's pretty late in the recruiting process for someone in 2022. So like getting a bulge bracket offer at this time is probably um, it's going to be hard to. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's more likely that if you continue to recruit, it'll be a worse offer, and it's less likely that it'll be a better offer, right? Just due to this, it's purely a numbers thing. Like most of the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks have been done recruiting already, right? Now, if you're asking this from the angle of like, oh, should I do this because it's a capital market and it's not like M&A or something? I know like on a lot of places like Wall Street Oasis, people will say like, oh, like capital markets is not real banking, or like you just like M&A or bust or whatever. Um, I think like it depends on what your goals are, and like what are you trying to do after banking? Because like I think even being in the capital markets group can be a great experience, right? But like if you say like, oh, I want to work in private equity afterwards, okay, then yes, like capital markets, like you don't do as much modeling, and it's probably like not going to help you as much as being an M&A group or another product group would for private equity recruiting. But like not everyone wants to do private equity, right? The other thing also that you should think about too is um, even if you do a capital markets internship over the summer, it doesn't mean you have to stay there, right? You might be able to switch into another group for full time, either at the same bank that you interned at, or you can also recruit again for full time at a different bank. But then at least you have that capital markets internship on your resume that says, uh, you know, Barclays or UBS, or I don't know who you're referring to here as a mid BB, right? But the internship offer that you accept does not have to be like the end all be all. It does not have to be like the last thing you recruit for. It does not have to be where you start your career. Right? You can always recruit again. So it's just a question of like, does this set you up to do what you want to do further on down the line? And since I don't really know what you want to do, like you're gonna have to answer that question, right? Um, I guess you have a follow up here where you say, by the way, I'm an international non-diversity, and the process has been pretty tough for me. My other option is to continue to recruit for Hong Kong. Yeah, so like, look, if things have been tough for you and you would rather stay here in the U.S., that's the other consideration that we haven't even talked about, which is like, okay, U.S. versus Hong Kong, like that's very different, right? Like, where do you want to live after you graduate? I think the experience is going to be different too. Most people would say that the banking industry in the U.S. is a lot more mature, right? And you're probably gonna get a slightly like more like better experience if you start a career in banking in the U.S., right? But again, like that's just like one of the many factors. Like saying capital markets at a mid-tier bulge bracket in the U.S. versus something else in Hong Kong, it's not that black or white. Like it depends on what this thing in Hong Kong is that you're comparing against, right? But I would say like you should probably be recruiting for both, right? And then just see like what you land first, and whatever offer you land, you have to decide like if that's an offer that you want to take or not. But I would say, more likely than not, if you don't have another offer yet at the time, I would recommend that you take the offer because you never know what's going to happen with the rest of your processes, right? Of course, if you then, let's say you get another offer after you accept the first offer, okay, then that's could put you in kind of like a tough spot, but this is a good problem to have, right? And then like you can figure out what you want to do at that point in time. But you might never get there, so you don't want to like put the cart before the horse. Like you cross the bridge when you get there, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Let me come back to Instagram real quick. So the Burjesh asks, where could I intern for resume experience before I intern for both back end, middle market, and elite boutique banks? I wish to get into elite boutique banks, but I don't know what I will need in terms of job experience. Yeah, I mean, look, prior to getting a both back end or elite boutique, what our students do is you just want to get relevant experience. It doesn't have to be at like a name brand place per se. Like uh, you can intern at a smaller investment bank. Obviously, that would be the most relevant because it's investment banking. You can work at a private equity firm or a search fund. Like that's highly relevant as well because you're acquiring businesses. You can work for a small hedge fund or a family office. They are analyzing stocks and investing, and so that could be relevant. You can work for a valuation firm because valuation is something that you do all the time. You can work for like we've had students that have done corporate development internships, which just means you're doing um, M&A, but you're doing it in house at a company as opposed to you know at a bank, right? Typically, it's going to be the bigger companies that have corporate development teams. You can do an equity research internship, uh, which is also highly relevant. You can also, I think some people intern for like private wealth management, which is like typically easier to get than the other ones I just named. But I also think it's like personally, it's not my favorite because it's a bit more hit or miss, and I find like a lot of private wealth management internships seem like finance internships on the outside, but once you actually go there and do it, it turns out to be like more of a sales and marketing role, or like like just like contacting high net worth individuals, and the skill set's not as transferable or as relevant, right? So I actually have a video on exactly this topic on my YouTube channel where I rank all the different types of experiences that you can go after. So if you guys are not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, I would recommend that you go and subscribe to it so that you get these videos when they come out. But you can also, while you're at it, go look for that video. Like I put my YouTube videos into like different playlists and stuff into different topics, and so there's one playlist that's focused on like the application and networking portion of the recruiting process, and the videos in that playlist. Okay. You also asked, does working with an accountant work? Yeah, accounting could also be sort of somewhat relevant, but it's not the most relevant. Like finance internships are always going to be better than an accounting internship. Like accounting, a lot of times you're um, learning how to like debit this and credit that and balancing the T ledger and stuff like that. Like that's more relevant if you want to go work for like a big four firm later, like KPMG or PricewaterhouseCoopers or Deloitte or Ernst and Young. Right? Like you want to do audit, like you can go do an accounting internship. But I wouldn't say like that's probably like even lower than private wealth management on my list, to be honest. Okay. Um, we come back to YouTube. So hit it again, Mr. Naruto here. Assuming worst case scenario, if I don't get an internship the summer before graduation, would it then make sense to delay graduation for another shot the year after? Yeah, you can do that. You can certainly do that. We have students that have, maybe come to us too late, like they try to recruit on their own, and then they failed, right? And they didn't get a summer internship, and so they come to us and they want us to help them, and as a part of that process, they'll delay their graduation so that they can recruit for the following summer. And then they end up being very successful because the second time around they have our help and they just know exactly what to do and they get a completely different result. Right. So we've had students do that and get into like top tier banks like Bulge Bracket, Elite Boutique, and middle market banks like across the board. So that's certainly something you can keep in your back pocket as like a last resort, right? You don't have to like do that prematurely though. Okay. Excuse me. Let me just get a drink of water here. Just been talking a lot. Okay. Let me go to the next question. Harry G asks, do major banks use ATS to assess CVs for spring program applications? Yeah, Harry, I think that most banks, the bigger ones, like they probably do have some form of ATS software that they use to help screen resumes, but there's also a manual component to it as well. Like I know, like a lot of banks, like they'll have actual bankers, typically analysts, who are helping out with the recruiting team, and they'll go through the stack of resumes and they'll actually like screening them by hand, right? And I used to do that too when I was at Morgan Stanley, and so that's how I kind of know a lot of things that these firms are looking for, right? So, not sure if there's like another reason why you are asking this, but if you have a follow up, feel free to ask that. Okay. Um, Brajesh asks, how long do I plan to go for? Yeah, I plan to go for another 22 minutes before I have to go and do something else. And so usually we do these AMAs for at least an hour, if not more. Okay. Um, Nyan, the next question. Nyan asks, how do we break into boutique IB/PE/VC firms with no IB internship experience? Um, by boutique, like, so I assume you're talking about like smaller firms, not like the name brand IB or not like the elite boutiques, but you're talking about like kind of like more regional firms, I assume, right? So if you're talking about the more regional firms, um, you don't necessarily need prior IB experience to get to those firms. Like if you're talking about um, like the bigger names, in banking and in PE and in VC, like then yes, like a lot of them will only hire out of people who already have banking experience. But like earlier, like I said, when I was talking to someone else, like if you're an underclassman, for example, and you're looking for your first internship, like everyone has to start somewhere, right? And we see this problem that people run into all the time where they don't know how to get their foot in the door, right? It's a chicken and the egg problem because they know they need finance experience, but they can't find anyone who will hire them for a finance internship if they don't already have any finance experience in the first place. So then they get stuck, right? So like the way that you have to address that is, or kind of like work around that is, one, and I kind of talked about this earlier in another question too, but like don't just look in the same place that everyone else is looking. Like everyone is looking on LinkedIn and Indeed and Glassdoor and these websites. Like you're just not going to be the most competitive candidate there. So you need to go find that's like, they have this terminology like blue ocean, red ocean. Like red ocean means like it's super crowded, a lot of like your competition's in there and it's just like really, really hard. You need to go find your blue ocean, right? Where there's not that many people there. And so it's like using like proprietary sources for these job opportunities that not a lot of other people know about, right? So like you can either find your own, that like that might be like through your personal network, for example, right? And through referrals from people you know. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Or a lot of students that like we work with, like inside of Wall Street Mastermind, we'll provide them with like our own proprietary sources of opportunities, whether it's just like job opportunities that our alumni network refer us to, because they're working at a lot of these firms already. We'll always give our students first dibs, right? Or we have um, like other like less well-known websites that are like highly effective for finding some of these relevant internship opportunities that we teach our clients, kind of how to tap into that. Or another example would be like we have a like an investment banking database, which is like it's got like over 1,000 investment banks in there with all of their contact information and what cities they have offices in and their name, website, email syntax, so on and so forth, and everything's organized for you. You can run some filters based on the criteria that you have um, to narrow down the list of banks, and then you can like basically what you're gonna have to do is like reach out to them and network with them and ask them if they have any openings, and if they do, whether they're able to talk to you and give you a shot, right? Like a lot of these smaller firms in particular, they won't even post their jobs online, or like a lot of them don't even have structured internship programs, but they will create a position for you if you reach out to them and they really like you and they think you're worth the trouble, basically, and they'll give you that opportunity. Right? So that's kind of like what you want to do if you're just starting out and you don't have a whole lot of relevant experience. Okay. Um, Let me go to the next question. Harry says, any spring program application tips? Yeah, I mean, look, Harry, with Spring Program applications, it's the same thing. And for a lot of our U.S. viewers who don't know what he's talking about, Spring Program is more for the U.K. So in the U.K., they have these spring programs, spring weeks, which you can basically apply for. And if you get chosen, um, it happens during your freshman year or your first year in college. And if you do well at the spring weeks, that can automatically turn into an interview for your summer internship opportunity, which then happens like that internship happens at the end of the second year because college in the UK is only 3 years, right? So their junior summer internship is actually after their second year is a sophomore summer internship. But in terms of Spring Week apps, look, it's not that different from any other applications that you submit, right? Like you need to have a really, really good CV, make that as good as possible. You need to stack as much relevant experience as you can on there in terms of like work experience, but also extracurricular activities outside of just classes, right? You need to keep your grades up in school. And then I think like a lot of these programs, like they'll ask you to actually answer competency questions, which are like just basically like behavioral questions or fit questions. But instead of answering them verbally, you have to kind of like write them out, write out your answers. It's like a essay format, right? Short essay format. Usually they'll give you a word limit. It's like 100 words or 200 words, or I've seen up to like 250 words usually. But they don't want it to be too long. And sometimes it's one question. Sometimes it might be like two or three questions that you have to answer, right? And most of those questions typically are some combination of like, tell me about yourself, walk me through your resume, why are you interested in our firm, or why are you interested in investment banking, and or like why do you think you'll be good for this role, right? So it's like pretty basic questions. It overlaps a lot with like your behavioral interview prep, right? So you have to be really, really good on your behavioral interview stories and the answers. Like a lot of people neglect this part when it comes to their interview preparation process. Like everyone's so focused on the technical aspect of the interview, but like I gotta say, like the behavioral part of the interview is actually way, way, way more important than the technical part because the technical part is just like the table stakes. Like you get to the final round interview, like pretty much everyone there is probably going to know their technicals pretty well. That's not what's going to set you apart from your competition. What will set you apart is the quality of your stories and your behavioral answers, and like you being able to convey who you are and why you're a better candidate, than everyone else. Okay, so, but I think long story short, your CV and your competency questions, like those are probably like the most important ones or most important aspects of the spring program applications. Okay. Next question. So, Greg, Asks, although I know banking is your specialty, I guess I'm asking what's the best way to get an internship at firms like Cornerstone Macro, Alpine Macro, or BCA Research, class of 2024, stats plus econ major. Um, I'm gonna be honest, Greg. I don't even know these three firms, so I can't really give you a lot of good advice about these firms specifically. But I think like the best way to get an internship at any firm, regardless of whether it's investment banking or in equity research, is it really just comes down to two things. One, like your resume, right? Like how good you look on paper, and two, um, your networking with the employees who already work at that firm, getting them to like you, and basically like impressing them and winning them over so that they become your advocate and they're pulling for you from the inside, right? So if you can check both of those boxes, like getting selected for an interview should not be a problem. Like that's what we work with all of our students on when it comes to like getting them more interviews. It's just like how do we build up your resume or your CV the right way so that it has all the markers that people want to see, and also how do we present it in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, and everything is formatted perfectly, and things are in the right places on your resume where the bankers are kind of looking for them. Um, and then like networking is probably like the much harder part. Like fixing a resume, in my opinion, is like very easy. We typically get that done in like less than 2 days. But the networking part is like, you actually have to put yourself out there and talk to these people and ask intelligent questions and also provide good answers to their questions that they're asking you. And at the end of the day, you have two objectives, right? One, you have to make them feel like you're a qualified candidate and make them basically impress them, right? And then two, if you can do that, then the second thing they still need to do is like they have to like you as a person. You have to like just the conversation has to be enjoyable. And if they actually like you and they can see themselves wanting to work with you, then they're going to be more likely to um, want to go out of their way to help you, right? Um, and so that's like the very high level gist of it. But like when it comes to networking, like we have probably like over 10 hours of networking training inside of our program. So there's a lot to talk about there, and we don't have time on just like this live stream here. But I'll just tell you, like with networking, you want to be very methodical and very strategic about it, where you want to think about we call it like the networking funnel. So each step in a networking funnel, from like, okay, who should I be targeting? Like, who's the most likely to respond to me and help me? To what do I say when I first reach out to get them to actually even engage with me? To okay, now if I've gotten them to engage with me, like what should I be talking to them about? What are the questions I want to ask? What are the questions that I should never ask? And also like how do I plan on answering some of the questions that I expect them to ask me, right? And then like how do you get them to actually refer you, right? Like how do you nurture the relationship? How do you follow up afterwards? How do you make it not feel like super transactional and make it feel like you're actually like building a relationship with them, right? All those things go into like kind of this process that we call networking. And then also like a lot of times you might try to network with people and they might not respond to you, or like you reach out and you just don't hear back, or they ghost you, or like what do you do in those situations, and how do you kind of like follow up and be persistent without being annoying? Like those are all things that you have to learn how to do. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Let me go back to Instagram for a real second. um, Burjesh asks, how much do first year analysts get paid at the smaller EBs? And would it be possible to move up to the bigger ones in the future? I mean, when you say smaller EBs, like most elite boutiques are around the same size. They're like not as big as the bulge bracket banks in terms of headcount. But if you're in an elite boutique, like you likely have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees. And so, but they're all kind of in that range, right? But in terms of pay, um, I mean, all the like almost like most of the bulge bracket and boutique banks and even some of the middle market banks have been raising their pay recently, like just in the last month or two or so. Um, Prior to that, like first year analyst, the base salary was $85,000, and you might make another 75, like 50, 75 to 100% in your bonus. So you might make like 150K your first year as an analyst. Now all the banks have bumped their base salary up to anywhere between 100 to $120,000, right? And then bonus, I mean, I guess TBD, but we will expect it to still be around 50 to 75 to 100%. And the difference between 50 and 75 100 is based on your performance. Like, are you a top bucket analyst in your class, or are you like just average, or are you like the bottom bucket analyst? Like, if you're like the bottom bucket, you're probably not going to get a very big bonus, right? But like all in, like we've seen some elite boutiques who expect to pay out more than $200,000 on the high end to a first year analyst, which is like pretty insane. Like back in my days when I worked at Bulge Bracket Bank, granted that was many years ago, and so there's been inflation and things like that. But our base salary was 60K, and then I think like after my bonus, I got a top bucket bonus my first year, and my all in compensation was about 110, right? So it's almost doubled since then, which is great for you guys. Super happy for you guys. But yeah, like it's not normal for college grads to really make that amount of money right out of college. Okay. Average college grad in the U.S. makes about $50,000 a year, just for context. So you're looking at like a 3 to 4x increase over your classmates who graduate the same time as you. That's why so many people want these jobs, though. It's really hard to get, right? Um, Let me go to the next question. Uh, Bruce says, "Hey Sam, please see the follow-up question." Where is the follow-up question, Bruce? I am. Did I miss it? Did I skip it? Uh, yeah, I think I already answered your follow-up question. Okay, maybe you said that before. Okay, cool. So, Nat, let me go to the next question. So Nathan asks, I've heard that freshman finance internships are hard to obtain. How useful would an internship at a financial reporting company be? Nathan, define financial reporting company. Like, what company are you talking about? And like, more importantly, what exactly will you be doing at that company? Like, what is financial reporting? Like, I'm not really familiar with that terminology, so you might have to clarify for me. Okay. So just drop another comment down below, and I will I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Um, Brian Boyle asks, Sam, do you advise a non-paid internship for IB at a boutique even when you have an entry-level finance position? Um, I assume what you're asking is like if you already have. Uh, well, what are you saying here? Are you saying you already have a full-time offer secured after you graduate, and that's in finance? And you're asking like, if you already have the offer, should you still do a non-paid internship? Because I'll say this, like typically when people do non-paid internships, maybe you can clarify for me, Brian, what you mean. But uh, typically when people do a non-paid internship, it's to gain experience because obviously you're not doing it to make money, right? And typically the reason why people are doing it for experience is so that they can boost up their resume, and it's going to help them get more interviews at the investment banks that they ultimately want to work at after they graduate, right? Now, when you said entry level finance position, though, that kind of makes me think that whatever job you have lined up is not necessarily in investment banking, because if it was, then you would just say it was investment banking, right? So if you just have like a non-banking finance position lined up after you graduate, and you're asking if you should do a non-paid internship for investment banking, um, it just depends on like why you would be doing it. You just have to have a good reason, good rationale to do free work for somebody, right? Like if you're saying, "Hey, I couldn't break into banking right after I graduated, so I took another finance job, and then like my plan is to do that for 6 to 12 months, and then I'm going to try and lateral to a investment bank," then sure, like having another investment banking internship on your resume is going to be helpful, right? Because it's going to make your resume stronger. You're going to have more relevant experience, right? But if you don't know why you're doing it, then it probably doesn't make sense, right? So I'm not sure if I answer your question or what you're actually asking there, but hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to clarify. Oh, I guess you said something else. I'm saying I have a financial analyst position at Broadridge, but I'm looking to break an IB. It's saying, is that non-paid internship more valuable? Oh, I see. So you have a full-time offer at Broadridge, but you want to break into IB. So should you take a non-paid internship at an IB instead of going to work at Broadridge? Okay, got it. I'm not familiar with Broadridge because I don't think that's an investment bank, but it depends on what they're doing, right? I think also like whether you take a non-paid internship or not, it's kind of a personal question because like if that's something that you're gonna do, um, like if that's something that you're gonna do after you graduate, then it depends on like if you need the money, right? Like some people actually need a paid job to be able to pay the bills, right? But like if you can go home and live with your parents while you're working, or I don't know, for some reason you don't need to pay rent, or um, maybe you're just like super wealthy, I don't know, right? Like then maybe taking a non-paid internship is okay, right? Between the IB internship and I just Googled Broadridge real quick to see what it is. It looks like it's a fintech company. But between the IB internship versus Broadridge, like from an experience standpoint, there's no doubt that having the IB internship is going to be more relevant to what you want to do ultimately, which is work at an investment bank, right? From like an experience standpoint, there's no doubt that that's the better option. But um, I don't know your financial situation, so I don't know if like you have that luxury or not. But if you do, then sure, yeah, I would say like the IB boutique is more relevant. But also like I don't know, like since it's a non-paid internship, I don't know what the arrangement is at the end of that internship. Like, do you have the option to go back for full time if you do a good job, or is it like, hey, you come intern for us for 3 months, and then after that, like you're on your own. You got to figure out like if you don't get another job, you're back out on the streets or something, right? So there's different level of risk that you're taking there, depending on what the terms are exactly. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense, Brian. But let me go to the next question. Burjesh asks, can a bachelor's in finance, let me see here, can a bachelor's in finance or business administration work? Yeah, those are perfectly fine. Like, I mean, if you major in business, you major in finance, those are probably like the most relevant majors you can have in school. So for sure. Although I don't think like majors matter that much. Like for those of you that are watching this, even if you don't major in something that's relevant to business or finance, you can absolutely still get into investment banking. A lot of our students actually don't um, major in business or finance, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. Um, Ryan asks, "Hey Sam, any safe investments for students? I'm still in school, but I want to get started in stock since I can't due to my schedule." Yeah, Ryan. I'm not gonna give you investment recommendations because I'm not licensed to do so, and it would be illegal for me to do that, and I can't be responsible if you lose money. Any investment comes with risk. Um, but one thing I will say, just generally speaking, if you're asking about safe investments, yes, there are a lot of safe investments out there. Typically, the safer the investment, the lower the returns, right? So it's all correlated. High risk, high return. Low risk, low return. That doesn't mean you should go for the risky thing. It just means like depends on like what your risk tolerance is and like what type of return profile you need. Okay, but I can't give you recommendations on that unfortunately. So I apologize, but that's just not what I'm here to do. Okay. Um, so let me keep going. Harry says, "Thanks, Sam. Really useful insight." Blah, 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 blah. Innocent question. Yeah, no worries, Ryan. No need to apologize, man. It's not a bad question. I'm just saying, like, I'm not qualified, nor do I feel comfortable to give you investment advice. That's all I'm saying. I invest my own money, but that's like I'm taking a risk with my own money, so I can be responsible for that, right? Um, Brajesh asks, how often do you plan to do these streams so I can make a reminder? Yeah, I mean, we typically do these the first Tuesday of every month at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. So if you want to set a calendar invite, you can set it for that time. But also, like, if you just subscribe to my email list, we always send out reminders before these AMAs. So that way you'll never forget. So I highly encourage you to just like go to my website, opt into one of my free resources or whatever you want, and that will get you added to our email list. Okay. So with that said, like we're up on the hour. The last thing I want to mention here is just like, we sent out an announcement this past week, and I don't know how many people saw it, but like we're actually launching a scholarship for Wall Street Mastermind, where like because a lot of times like there's students that want to work with us, want to get coached by me and the team to help them with the investment banking recruiting process, but they can't afford our services, and like we understand that like not everyone is fortunate enough to be in a situation to be able to, pay for coaching. And so, what we want to do is we're offering 5 scholarships for students who are very qualified and actually have a financial need. Okay, so you're gonna have to like show us some proof that you qualify both financially, but also it's going to be merit based. You're gonna have to fill out like a quick application just so that we can vet you, and then we're giving away 5 of these spots where you get to come into our program completely for free, and we'll help you from now until you're done with the recruiting process. Okay, and so if you guys are interested in doing that, then feel free to um, reach out to me. Probably the best way is like reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me about the scholarship, and I can send you the link with all the information and the details for how to apply. Okay. Um, Hopefully like that helps some of you guys. I know a lot of you have been following us for a while and you want to work with us, but for whatever reason you just can't make it happen financially, and that's totally cool. Okay. um, for those of you who are like, the last thing I'll say since we're on the scholarship topic is like, if you guys are new and you guys don't really know that much about us, first of all you can go to our website and kind of see all of the results that we've gotten for our clients. But basically over the last 3+ years we've worked with, I think, like right around 450 students or so, and of the ones that have actually like completed the program and they're done with the investment banking recruiting process, um, over 90% of them have successfully gotten into investment banking. Okay, and so we're not just talking about like target school students with amazing grades and amazing resumes and amazing everything. Like, yes, we have students like that too, but that's not like the majority of our students. Like, we work with students from target schools and non-target schools. You can see the list of schools on our website as well. We work with students from GPAs as low as 3.0 all the way up to 4.0 and everything in between. A lot of students come to us actually with no prior relevant experience whatsoever, and so like I kind of talked to you guys about like some of the things that we teach them how to do in terms of like getting their foot in the door and getting that first relevant experience in the beginning. And so whatever it is that you need help with, like we basically try to be super comprehensive and help you with everything. It's like an all-in-one service, which like we haven't really seen anywhere else out there. We'll help you with build up your resume. We'll teach you how to network. We also have our own Wall Street Mastermind network now, obviously with like our own alumni. We'll teach you how to answer all the technical questions, and we'll help you draft all of your behavioral answers. And so it's just like there's nothing that you're going to need to be successful in this investment banking recruiting process that we have not thought about in this program. Okay, and there's a lot of other like cool things we do inside of the program. Like we do like this thing called mock interview hot seats, where like you can actually like not only just do mock interviews yourself, but you can actually see other people's mock interviews and see how they perform and see the feedback that we give other people. Because a lot of times when they're like people are preparing for banking recruiting on their own, they don't know like how they stack up against competition. Like they just know how they're going to deliver their own answers, but they have no idea what other people are doing or how good other people sound, or maybe how bad other people sound. It's just like at the end of the day, it's a competitive process. You can't just focus on yourself. You also have to think about like, am I better than my competition? Right. So we do cool stuff like that. We also have like weekly office hours twice a week actually, where we jump on and answer questions live, just kind of like what we're doing now. Like this AMA free AMA thing, like we do once a month, right? Which is not a lot, but like with our students that we're working with, we jump on calls like this like twice a week actually. Okay, and you get like unlimited access to all the coaches. You can message us anytime you guys have questions. We use Slack for everything. We jump on calls with you if we need to. Like, it's super hands on. It's honestly a freaking awesome program. Some people hate on it because I don't know. Like, I think some people don't like us because they're not in the program and they think it's unfair and whatever. But yeah, it is unfair, you know. But if you're looking for like that unfair advantage, then I encourage you to reach out to our team. Not even to our team. Reach out, schedule that free virtual coffee chat first with an upperclassman that's gone through our program first. Okay, there's just an upperclassman. There's just like an upperclassman from your school, for example, and you can talk to them, ask them for recruiting advice, ask them about the program, ask them whatever you want, and then like see if it's for you. And if it is for you, then you can talk to our team. Okay, so it's like very much like a no pressure thing, right? So I encourage you guys to check that out. If you like what I if you liked what I had to say on this call, like there's a lot more of where this came from. All right, so hopefully this helped you guys out. And again, we'll be back again at the beginning of October for the next AMA. Make sure you guys tune in for that. And if you haven't yet, go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We post weekly videos on there also to give you guys more tips and tricks on how to recruit for the best jobs. And I'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye.